Mangwana ni mwalelepo vukenjani kekwa Savanave Africa. Welcome to Africa Good Morning, the news and current affairs show bringing you everything you need to know happening on the African continent and beyond. You are joined by Ashwin Berry and Diana Master on Workers' Day. Happy Workers' Day.
Hi, how are you?
I'm fantastic. How's it going?
I'm doing well. It's going great.
Yes, working on Workers' Day.
Working on Workers' Day.
Look at us.
But I mean, we do have to keep the people up to speed with the latest news happening all over the world. And speaking of heavy battles in Sudan, despite latest truce, national shutdown, truck drivers gear up for protest on South Africa's major routes. Head of regional force tackling East Congo violence resigns. Stick around, we'll be back with our top stories right after this break.
Heading into our top stories, fighting raged on in Sudan on a Friday despite rival forces getting to extend a truce aimed at stemming nearly 2 weeks of warfare that has killed hundreds and caused widespread destruction. In the war-ravaged Western Darfur region, scores have been killed in days of bitter urban battles in the city of Al-Jejiena, the United Nations says. There have been multiple truce efforts since fighting broke out on the 15th of April between Sudan's army led by General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan and the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces commanded by his former deputy and fellow coup leader Mohamed Hamdan Daglo. Since a power struggle between Burhan and Daglo erupted into violence, fighter jets have pounded RSF positions in densely packed districts of Khartoum as fighters on the ground exchanged volleys of artillery and heavy machine gun fire.
Now moving over to South Africa, national shutdown. Truck drivers gear up for protest on SA's major routes. Police and other state security services have assured South African motorists that they will be closely watching the national shutdown announced by organizers of the truck drivers' protest planned for today. The protest is expected to strain the supply chain as billions of rands of goods are transported via trucks across South Africa due to the country's failing rail network, Business Tech noted in a report. According to All Truck Drivers Forum and Allied South Africa's deputy chairperson, Mandla Mngomezulu, the truck blockade comes after concerns about the use of foreign drivers in the industry have fallen on deaf ears for years. The issue of foreign truck drivers being given preference for employment has been raised for the past 3 years by local driver associations. Mngomezulu explained that an interministerial committee of various government departments, including Transport, Home Affairs and Labour and Employment, was set up in 2021 to look into the matter, but nothing has been done to address the matter.
The Kenyan commander of a regional force set to tackle militia violence in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo said he resigned due to obstruction and threats to his safety, adding to doubts over whether the mission can be effective. In the letter dated Thursday, Major General Jeff Nyaga said he was quitting due to an aggravated threat to his safety and a systematic plan to frustrate the force's efforts. Diplomatic and Congolese government sources confirmed the letter's authenticity. However, Kenya Defense Forces said on Friday the Nyagam had not resigned, saying the letter written by him was fake, but that he had in fact been appointed to a domestic command role. The 7 countries of the East African Community set up the EACRF military force last April to try to end bloodshed linked to decades of militant activity in Congo's east.
Gunmen in Nigeria free 74 children after ransoms paid. Gunmen in Nigeria have released 74 children out of more than 80 people who were abducted earlier this month in northwestern Zamfara state after ransoms were paid, parents and village heads said on Saturday. Gangs of armed men have attacked hundreds of local communities across northwestern Nigeria in recent years, while Islamist militants continue to stage attacks in the northeast. 2 parents from Zamfara's Wadzamai village said they paid 20,000 naira, which is approximately $43 each, and their children were among those released on Friday and had suffered from severe malnutrition. A village head in Wadzamai said 11 people were still being held, but 2 were killed trying to escape from their captors. A police spokesperson for Zamfara said they could not immediately comment. Kidnappers in Nigeria often keep their victims for months in the forest if a ransom is not paid, and also demand villagers pay protection fees to be allowed to farm and harvest their crops.
Now, in a shocking development, Zimbabwe Court on Friday sentenced an opposition politician to 4 years in prison for a Twitter post that he made in 2020 as he was protesting. Now, Jacob Ngarivume, leader of small opposition party Transform Zimbabwe, tweeted a call for nationwide anti-government protests over corruption and the country's catastrophic economic state. He will stay behind bars for 3 years after the court set aside 1 year on condition of good behavior. A final suspended sentence would not deter further offenders. A sentence must be meaningful, ruled Magistrate Florence Chakanyuka. The sentence is seen as setting a precedent for other suspects facing similar charges. Job Sikala, a popular opposition politician, has been in prison over 300 days for allegedly inciting violence during a speech. He still awaits judgment, which is due next week. Now, the Southern African country is due to hold presidential and legislative polls in August, but no date has been announced yet. In a video posted on his Twitter account on Friday before the sentencing, Ngarivume alleged from inside the court that the state was using tactics to stop him from participating in the upcoming polls.
And now bringing us to the end of our top stories, Uganda police arrest 11 female lawmakers during protests. Police in Uganda detained 11 female members of parliament on Thursday, who they accused of staging an unlawful protest, with some of the lawmakers sustaining injuries during their arrest. The lawmakers were detained just outside the parliament buildings in the capital Kampala as they prepared to march to the Ministry of Internal Affairs, where they intended to hand over a protest note to the minister. They were protesting what they said was police brutality and use of excessive force to disperse various functions organized by female lawmakers in their local constituencies in recent weeks. Videos of the scuffle that circulated on social media showed police officers struggling to shove the lawmakers, who were all dressed in black attire, into a van. Police spokesperson Luke Oyesigere denied that officers had used excessive force. He accused the lawmakers of resisting arrest and injuring some police officers.
Truly disturbing scenes over there. That brings us to the end of our top stories on Africa Good Morning. After the break, we talk to Talent Gore as she brings us the news from Zimbabwe.
Welcome to Active Kids, a daily TV show that sparks creativity, learning, and fun for young minds. With exciting activities and lessons, Active Kids inspires curiosity and a love for learning.
New face to the 115, huh?
The perfect mix of play and education. Don't miss out on the fun. Tune into Active Kids on NTV every weekday at 10 o'clock and let the adventure begin.
Now, the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe is set to roll out digital tokens this month. Here to give us the full details of the story, Talent Gore, all the way in Zimbabwe. Good morning, Talent.
Good morning, Diana. Good morning, Ashwin and Africa. Good morning.
Right, let's get into the story. Give us the details, please.
So, the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe yesterday stated that it would start issuing gold-backed digital tokens on May 8 as one of its several measures to save the free-falling local currency. Last year, gold coins were introduced as part of the several policy measures introduced by the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe to ease the demand for the United States dollar and stabilize the Zimbabwean dollar exchange rate, and also to term the resurgent inflation. But the gold coins have done little as it stands right now. So now the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe has said that they will introduce a gold-backed digital coins, and these digital coins will be issued for investment purposes with a vesting period of 180 days, and they will be redeemable in the same way as the existing physical gold coins. So they'll be redeemable at banks and the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe. The tokens will also be available for sale through banks in foreign currency and the Zimbabwean dollar. But however, the citizens are saying that this policy measure is a failure, given that they have already introduced gold coins and they haven't done much as it stands, and the inflation rate is going high right now. We find out that one United States dollar is trading at 2,100 Zimbabwean dollar. So citizens are not happy with this new policy that the Reserve Bank is set to introduce.
All right, now, Talent, we touched on the story of Jacob Ngarivume, who has essentially been sentenced to 4 years in prison because of a Twitter post that he made. Could you please expand on that story?
Yes, Jacob Ngarivume of the opposition Transform Zimbabwe has been sentenced to 4 years in prison, but a year has been set aside for good behavior. And the magistrate said that the sentence is because if we do not sentence him, it will give a precedence to others. So now they have to sentence him. But uh, Love Oneuptwo, had pleaded for a lenient sentence to allow his client to contest in the upcoming election, saying that sending him to prison is sending an opponent of the president of Zimbabwe, Emerson Mnangagwa, to jail, and this will be bad in the eyes of the international community. He must be allowed to participate in an election. But the magistrate, did not take that into consideration, and she sentenced him to 4 years in prison, and a year has been set aside, so he's going to serve 3 years in prison.
All right, now talent. South Africa's scrap of special work permits will leave Zim migrants exposed. Let's get into the full story.
Yes, well, this was said by an expert, Chakanuka, who said that the scrapping of the Zimbabwe exempt permit would lead to hundreds of thousands coming back home, and this is very bad in the eyes of Zimbabwe, because right now, as you all know, the economy is quite bad, and hundreds of thousands of Zimbabweans, they had flooded South Africa to escape economic hardship since the 90s. The South African government has since 2010 granted the migrants a special permit to live and work in the country, and in its latest iteration is the Zimbabwe exemption permit. Now the government says that the permit has run its course and wants to scrap it. Experts have said that this is quite bad for the Zimbabwean economy, which is already failing. So now we don't know what is going to happen when the citizens of Zimbabwe and South Africa come back home. We do not have jobs. Our economy is quite bad as it stands. So we don't know what is going to happen when those that have flocked South Africa come back to them.
All right. Thank you very much, Talent, for bringing us the news stories from Zimbabwe.
You're welcome, and thank you very much for having me.
Always good to have you on Africa. Good morning. Now, just before the weather, Yolanda now talks to Africa Millimeter Telescope team about the project and its benefits to Namibia. Have a look.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I have a full studio in today with Professor Michael Bacchus and Lot Frans from UNAM, and online we have Dr. Mark Kleinwald from the AMT project. And today we will be talking about astronomy, the Africa Millimeter Telescope, as well as the mobile planetarium. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having us. Thank you.
So we are just going to jump right in. Dr. Wald, can you quickly tell us what the AMT is all about?
Yeah, sure. Good morning. The AMT is a project that aims to put a telescope in Namibia near the Gamsberg Mountain, a telescope that is the size of, let's say, 15 meter size dish that is sensitive for radio waves coming from the universe at wavelengths of millimeters. And this telescope is we aim to connect to up to 8 or more telescopes around the globe to make images of black holes. So this is the essential thing that we want to do in Namibia.
Professor Bacchus, why was Namibia specifically chosen as the best destination?
Well, for the Event Horizon Telescope, you know that distributed telescopes around the globe are needed to build up a virtual telescope as large as the Earth. And there's a big gap in this network, and this is right over Africa, and particularly in the southern African region. And Namibia is blessed with very good conditions for doing astronomy from here, and this is how it came up.
Mr. Frans, as a Namibian, how does it feel to be part of this international team?
I'm definitely excited to be part of this major international project. It offers me the platform to advance my studies, offers me the platform to gain new skills, new knowledge, and definitely build on my development as a young astronomer.
And you are also busy with your PhD currently. How does it feel for you knowing that this project is actually taking place in Namibia?
It's just a dream come true. I mean, if you are a young scientist, this is what you envision yourself to be in this position. So yes, I'm very excited to do my studies in this field.
Professor Bacchus, the team applied for funding and you were awarded 14 million euros. What will the funds be used for?
Well, first of all, let me very briefly explain the whole situation. So the funds were applied for by three main groups, Professor Heino Falke at Radboud University, Professor Sarah Markov at the University of Amsterdam, and Professor Rob Fender from Oxford University. And together with those main applicants, there were a colleague, Eleanor Limfors from the University of Turku, and me here from the University of Namibia. And this whole group altogether was awarded this 14 million euro. For Namibia, that means there is something like 3 million euro that will be direct investment to the AMT project, as well as half of a senior scientist position, 2 PhD positions, as well as 4 master's positions here at the University of Namibia. And the whole project is, well, not just about the AMT, but it's centered around the Africa Millimeter Telescope, as it tries to understand black holes from the very smallest ones to the very largest ones at the very different scales.
Thank you. Dr. Volt, when are you planning to start setting up the AMT, and will the funding help fast-track this project?
Yeah, the funding definitely helps fast-track this project. Essentially, we are now starting this, right? Because we have been trying to gather all the money to build this telescope in Namibia, and that is not an easy task to do. But with the money, as my colleague just explained, that goes to a lot of the science that we will do with this telescope, but also as an investment into the telescope itself, we are now ready to go. That's basically the situation we are now at. Now, if you ask me when we start building, I would say yesterday, but that's impossible. So we are now making sure that the project has all the right people in place, all the right contracts in place and agreements, and then we need to finalize our complete design, and that will probably happen towards this year, and then actual construction would start after that, so that will be as early as next year.
All right, diving straight into our economic news, the Mozambican government has just invested 600 million meticais in the acquisition of bulls, aiming to improve the genetics of cattle, creating conditions for increased production of quality meat. According to Agriculture Minister Celso Correia, speaking during the launching ceremony of the animal vaccination campaign and the second National Livestock Forum on Tuesday in Matutuine district in Maputo province, about 2,000 cattle will be distributed to family farmers in the coming days in order to improve the quality of their livestock, as well as to improve the quantity and quality of meat to be supplied to the population.
Now, Tanzania expects the economy to rebound in 2023. Tanzania's economy is expected to grow faster this year compared with a year earlier, but performance could be dampened by effects of the war in Ukraine, Finance Minister Mwigulu Nchemba said in a letter to the International Monetary Fund. In the letter dated April 4th and made public on Friday, Nchemba said that the economy was expected to expand by about 5.2% in 2023 from 4.7% a year earlier. We expect the economy to continue facing headwinds from spillovers of the war in Ukraine in the near term, he said. Tanzania's economy relies on, among others, tourism, mining and agriculture.
Stay with us as we head into the sports with Ari after this short break.
To another exciting episode of Oneuptwo. Hier is die weer en vertel ook vir julle waar die vis heel moontlik gaan byt.
All right, it's time for us to get into the sports with Ari Hochart. Of course, English Premier League. Arsenal is still on top of the table in
at
my
number
heart.
2, as I wear red
on
today.
top of the table.
As I wear red today.
Oh, for Manchester United at number 4 and Liverpool at number 5. Ari Hochart, take it away.
Yes, no, that's lots of changes there on top. I see Diana's got red on today. Both of you supporting teams in red. I'm sure Diana have red on to support you morally there, also Ashwin. But that's what happened is that Manchester City now on top indeed. They've got 76 points after beating Fulham by 2-1. They've played one game less than Arsenal on 75. But Ashwin, you can watch the television screen tonight. Maybe Arsenal play Chelsea tonight. If they win, they go on top again. But they've played 2 games more than Manchester City then. But maybe take a screenshot of that standings then tonight. But going further, Newcastle and Manchester United, they still very much in the top 4. Newcastle beating Southampton 3-1. And Manchester United beating Aston Villa 1-0. Important for them, both of them making sure that they stay in the top 4. Liverpool making a late charge, but I think it's going to be too late. They beat Tottenham Hotspur 4-3, but they're 7 points behind Manchester United, and Manchester United do have a game in hand for them to try and get into the top 4. Like I say, tonight it is Arsenal playing Chelsea, and then on Wednesday it will again be Manchester City have a chance to go on top again when they play West Ham at home. Formula 1 racing news. It was Azerbaijan Grand Prix. It was lots of action. It's a street race, tight corners there. But it was again Red Bull Honda that dominates. And it was this time Sergio Perez that showed that he's going to challenge Max Verstappen for the title. He's also in a good car. He won the title. And Max Verstappen in second place. So Charles Leclerc, he was on pole at the start, but the Honda's way too strong for them. When they get DRS, they just glide past them. And so it's Charles Leclerc still his first podium of the year, 3rd position. Points at the moment, Max Verstappen 93, Perez closer to him on 87, just 6 behind Alonso on 60, and then Mercedes, it is Lewis Hamilton on 48. In 4th position, Charles Leclerc in 6 on 34 points. On to some tennis news. It's the Madrid Open that continues. It's a big tournament. It's leading up to the French Open on clay. And all the best players in the world playing there besides Novak Djokovic that's injured. And they're still in the round of 32. Some of the results, number 1 seed in the men's, and also the favorite, Carlos Alcaraz of Spain. He beat Grigor Dimitrov 6-2, 7-5. That's in the round of 32. Daniel Medvedev, the 2nd seed, also still in the hunt. And then on the women's side, Iga Swiatek, number 1 seed in the women's race. She's through beating Bernardo Parra. And that is Aryna Sabalenka there in action. She's the number 2 seed, also challenging Iga Swiatek, also still in the tournament. On to rugby news, and there was some the semi-finals played of the European Rugby Championship for the European Cup. That's an impressive try there for Leinster. Leinster beat Toulouse, the French powerhouse, by 41 points to 22. They flew to the final. And it's also La Rochelle, the French team that beat Exeter Chiefs by 47-28. So it will be a final between Ireland and France. And that's Currie Cup action from Cape Town. Briefly, that was the Western Province beating the Bulls by 31 points to 7. That was in Cape Town, Province being the victors there. Closing off with the golf news real quickly as well. It was the Mexican Open that was concluded, and it's part of the PGA Tour. It was Eric van Rooyen of South Africa that challenged in the first 2 rounds, but he fell away. In the end, it was Tony Finau that came through. He won the tournament in the end. That is Eric van Rooyen there. He finished and tied 33rd. He had a last round of 3 over par for a total of -8. But the winner was Tony Finau on -5 for the final round, 24 under par total. John Rahm just second, a few shots behind him. So that was the golf action from Mexico. So that's the sports news for today. Hope you have a great sport day, the sport week. And Ashwin, I'll be shouting for Arsenal all the way tonight against Chelsea. So I think that will be a good win.
And of course, I'll be looking forward to Liverpool clinching that Champions League spot as Manchester United does what it does best, which is supporting Manchester City. Stay with us as we head into the highlights after the break.
Discover the breathtaking beauty of Namibia with Tourismus, a captivating program that uncovers the country's diverse landscapes, wildlife, and cultural experiences. Featuring insightful interviews with tourism experts, each episode takes you on a mesmerizing journey, exploring Namibia's majestic sand dunes, vibrant wildlife, and unique attractions. Watch Tourismus on NTV, Saturdays at 20:30 in German, and Sundays at 6 p.m. in English, for a heartwarming and unforgettable adventure.
All right, we gave you updates from Sudan all the way to Zimbabwe. It was a wonderful broadcast. Thank you for joining us. Happy Workers' Day.